For 2 years of marriage, I realized I knew nothing about my wife. I thought she was from a humble background, simple and naive, but it turned out she was the head of Vans, cold as ice. I wore worn-out knockoff sneakers for love, while she splurged a $2 million mansion on her idealized first love. How absurd! To ease the financial strain on our family, I took on a part-time job distributing flyers for a real estate company after work. What I never expected was to run into my wife here. I froze, watching the woman step out of the luxury sports car. Scarlett. I whispered, my face reflecting disbelief. I couldn't understand why my wife, who should have been doing food delivery to help with household expenses, was here and stepping out of a luxury car I'd usually avoid on the street. I stood there, stunned, my gaze fixed on the woman in front of me. I noticed she wasn't wearing the inexpensive clothes I'd bought for her online, but a gown whose price I couldn't even begin to estimate. Does have a twin sister? An absurd thought popped into my mind. After all, though the woman in front of me had the exact same face as my wife, her aura was completely different. My wife was approachable, like a warm, sunny girl. This woman, however, was cool and dignified, like an untouchable star in the heavens. I must be mistaken. This can't be Scarlett. I smiled and shook my head. However, the next second, I caught sight of the birthmark on the woman's collarbone. I froze completely. My wife had that same distinguishing mark. Could it be the woman in front of me really was my wife? Russell. My own thought sent a shiver down my spine, and the flyers in my hand scattered across the ground. Seeing this, the supervisor next to me frowned and snapped, "What's wrong with you?" "I am sorry, my apologies." I quickly apologized and bent down to pick up the scattered flyers, but even as my hands picked up the flyers, my gaze involuntarily drifted towards the woman. She hadn't left immediately after getting out of the car. Instead, she extended her hand. A flicker of confusion crossed my face. The next second, a fair hand rested on hers. "Scarlett, thank you for coming here with me." A handsome man in a white suit emerged from the car. Boom. My mind immediately went completely blank, as if struck by lightning. It really was Scarlett. No, this can't be. I stammered, my face filled with disbelief. What's impossible? The supervisor's voice sounded behind me. I quickly stood up, looking at her imploringly. "Supervisor, do you know who that woman is?" The supervisor looked at me, a flicker of confusion on her face. Then a mocking smile touched her lips as if she'd realized something. "Ethan, I advise you to stick to distributing flyers. Don't go dreaming about some rags to riches fantasy." That's Ms. Scarlett, the head of Vans, the top-tier financial group. Someone like that is not for a nobody like you to even dream of. Hearing that, my face went pale, and any last shred of hope I had shattered. At that moment, I no longer cared about my part-time job. I chased after Scarlett in the direction she'd gone. However, just as I was about to catch up, I suddenly lost all my courage. I didn't dare to approach Scarlett and demand an explanation. I hid nearby. I watched the usually high and mighty manager bowing and fawning before Scarlett, like a servant. I watched Scarlett buy a $2 million mansion for that man without even batting an eye. A sharp pain immediately pierced my heart. I looked down at my $50 sneakers, and suddenly found them glaringly obvious. They were already coming apart. But I still couldn't bring myself to throw them away. This was truly, utterly ridiculous. I stumbled back home in a daze. Opening the door, I saw that the cramped rental apartment didn't even have a decent TV, and I couldn't help but let out a bitter laugh. What a stark difference. Back when I suggested buying a $500 used TV, Scarlett had smiled and refused. She said we could watch shows on our phones, so why waste money? At the time, I thought she made perfect sense. Afterward, I worked my main job, then went to my part-time one every day, so I had no time to watch shows anyway. I was glad I hadn't spent money unnecessarily on a TV. Looking back now, I was truly foolish. Scarlett and I met while playing a game. My skills were terrible. All my teammates cursed me that round, but only Scarlett kept encouraging me. So, after the game, I proactively added Scarlett's contact information. We only chatted for a week before meeting in person. The first time we met, I instantly fell deeply in love with Scarlett, who was as warm as sunshine. She said her hometown was in an impoverished mountainous region, and even her travel expenses for college were painstakingly collected by the entire village. My heart ached for her, and I insisted on paying for that meal. Later, when I learned that Scarlett had been betrayed by a friend after graduating college, and starting her own business. Incurring a six-figure debt, I, with tears in my eyes, declared that I would help her repay it. Scarlett and I officially became a couple. In less than 3 months, I went against my parents' wishes, and got legally married to her. There was no wedding, no blessings, just a modest celebratory dinner that cost less than $100. Thinking about all this, my eyes gradually reddened, and my heart felt like a million tiny cuts. I was truly such an idiot. I moved out of my family home, and into a cramped rental apartment with Scarlett. All of our salaries, along with Scarlett's extra earnings from food delivery, went towards paying off her debt. The money I earned from my part-time job was used to cover all household expenses. I transformed from a spendthrift who never batted an eye at spending money into a penny-pinching head of the household who'd compare prices for 5 minutes just to buy a head of cabbage. For 2 whole years, I hadn't bought a single new outfit. The only pair of $50 sneakers I owned were a wedding gift from Scarlett, and they were already falling apart. A self-mocking smile touched my lips. I never imagined that the wife I had shared a bed with for over 700 nights was nothing but a lie, except for her name. I opened my phone and typed Vance Scarlett into the search bar, a privileged heiress from a century-old family, a financial prodigy with the sharpest business acumen, an heir to a fortune worth hundreds of millions. As I looked at the search results, my fingers tightened around the phone, my knuckles turning white. So this was my real wife. I couldn't help but laugh out loud, and as I laughed, I started to cry. I couldn't understand, why would Scarlett lie to me like this? Was this what wealthy people called a bizarre eccentricity, or perhaps a test? I thought back to every little moment over the past 2 years. Scarlett had seemed like a perfect wife. She would save the best food for me, would insist on doing chores, and would give me a massage every day. Those things weren't fake. But her splurging millions on that man today wasn't fake either. I felt an unbearable pain. Grief washed over me completely. I couldn't hold back anymore. I squatted down, buried my face in my hands, and sobbed uncontrollably, even when my throat was raw from crying. My emotions wouldn't settle. I slowly stood up, holding onto the dining chair. My gaze fell on the table, where the 2 breakfast pastries I had specially prepared for Scarlett that morning still sat, but she had said she was in a hurry for work and hadn't eaten a single bite. The pastries were now hard and cold. My heart suddenly turned cold as well. Ding. Just then, my phone chimed. It was a text message from Scarlett. "Hubby, I want to make a few more food deliveries today, so we'll be home later." I let out a bitter laugh. Scarlett probably forgot that, back then, I had specially set up location tracking on her phone so I could bring her dinner. When she was doing food delivery, I could check her real-time location anytime. I checked Scarlett's location. It was the Manor, the most luxurious club in the city. I'd heard that a single visit there started at a minimum of $300,000. $300,000 was enough for a down payment on an apartment in this city. They truly are rich, I said with a bitter smile. After a few seconds of thought, I decided to go find Scarlett and get some answers. Unfortunately, I couldn't even get past the main entrance of the Manor. It was members only. Only members were allowed inside. Seeing the disdain in the security guard's eyes, I silently withdrew my foot, which had been poised to step into the club. I didn't go home. Instead, I walked a short distance away and waited. Time ticked by, and just as I started to shiver from the cold wind, Scarlett emerged. The man I'd seen earlier that day was no longer with her. Instead, she was accompanied by several wealthy young men, and women dressed in incredibly expensive clothes. "Scarlett, are you going back to that cramped rental apartment again tonight?" one of the men joked. "Yes, I have to go back," Scarlett replied with a casual laugh. "No way, Scarlett. Are you serious about this charade? You haven't gotten tired of it after 2 years?" a younger woman asked, sounding surprised. "Yeah, Scarlett, you couldn't possibly be falling for that unsophisticated guy named Ethan, could you?" another woman chimed in. Hearing this, Scarlett shot the woman a contemptuous glance. "How could I possibly? I just wanted to see how infatuated that fool could get." At her words, everyone burst into laughter. Standing not far away, I also laughed. So, in Scarlett's eyes, I was just an infatuated fool. A sharp pain spread from my heart throughout my entire body. I felt like I was drowning. Even breathing became difficult. Scarlett was absolutely right. If I weren't so infatuated, why would I have alienated my family to marry her? Why would I have been fooled like a moron, spun around in circles? In that moment, My heart completely died. After a brief moment of suffocation, I decided to discard Scarlett, just like I was going to discard those pastries. After all, spoiled food and deceptive relationships were both trash. I walked towards Scarlett. At that moment, one of the men was still bantering with Scarlett. Scarlett, where did you find a guy who not only doesn't ask for money, but actually pays you to help clear your debts? Hearing this, Scarlett scoffed. I didn't look for him, he came to me on his own. After she spoke, Scarlett seemed to recall something, turning to face the group with a serious expression. I am warning all of you, don't you dare tell Julian that fool and I got married. The group responded, understood. Scarlett, don't worry, everyone knows Julian is your idealized first love. Nobody will say anything. By the way, Julian's back in the country, aren't you two going to get back together? Well, Scarlett's words trailed off midway. She looked at me, a guilty expression flashing across her face. What are you doing here? Are you surprised to see me? I paused, deliberately drawing out my words. Ms. Scarlett. Hearing me, Scarlett frowned, clearly displeased. The others all looked at me with ill intent, some even openly staring at me, from head to toe several times. After a few seconds of silence, Scarlett looked at me with utter contempt. Since you already know, there's no point in this anymore, so, tell me, what compensation do you want? I heard her let out a cold laugh, and slowly uttered 4 words, I want a divorce. A deathly silence immediately fell around us. My words seemed to enrage Scarlett. Her face instantly turned as dark as thunder. What did you say? I raised an eyebrow. What's wrong? Is Scarlett's new game playing deaf? I said, I want a divorce. Ethan, are you out of your mind? Scarlett roared, her face blazing with fury. Seeing this, the others quickly began to persuade her. Scarlett, don't mind him, who knows if this isn't just him playing hard to get. Exactly, maybe this guy found out who you are and is just putting on a show to get your attention. Just divorce him then, anyway. An unsophisticated guy like that isn't worthy of you. Hearing what they said, a thoughtful expression crossed Scarlett's face. Ethan, I don't like games. If you act sensible like before, I can forgive you. PFFT. I couldn't help but let out a laugh. Scarlett was truly amusing. She couldn't possibly think I'd continue to play this game with her like before. How revolting. I didn't want to waste another second on someone like her. I've always paid the rent. So don't bother coming back. Meet me at the Countess office tomorrow at 3 p.m. I'll bring the divorce papers with me. With that, I turned around, hailed a cab, and left. In the rearview mirror of the taxi, I could see Scarlett standing still, her face terrifyingly grim, but what did that matter to me? I returned to the cramped rental apartment. Originally, I had thought about packing up all of Scarlett's belongings and throwing them out, but I gave up on that idea. After all, I no longer needed to scrimp and save to help Scarlett repay her debts, so why should I force myself to continue living here? Besides, this room was filled with Scarlett's nauseating presence. I couldn't stand being in it for another second. I drafted a divorce agreement. I didn't intend to ask for a single cent from her. All I wanted was to divorce Scarlett as quickly as possible. However, the next day, I waited at the Countess office for a full hour, but Scarlett never showed up. I was annoyed, because was no longer worth my time. I checked my phone briefly and then headed towards Vance. As expected, I was stopped by the security guard outside the building. Seeing this, I pulled out my marriage certificate with Scarlett. The security guard looked utterly suspicious, but still notified Scarlett's secretary. 10 minutes later, a poised woman appeared before me. Mr. Ethan, Ms. Scarlett is currently in a meeting. I'll take you to the lounge to wait. The woman glanced at me with disdain and spoke imperiously. I followed her into the office area. As we turned a corner, I stopped, then followed a sign on the wall, walking in the opposite direction. Mr. Ethan, you can't go that way. Mr. Ethan, the secretary chased after me. But it was too late. I had already pushed open the door to Scarlett's office. Scarlett had both hands braced on the desk, and beneath her was her first love, Julian. Seeing my appearance, Scarlett quickly straightened up, a look of panic flashing across her face. Scarlett, who is this? Julian awkwardly adjusted his clothes, then intimately linked his arm through Scarlett's and asked. Hearing him, Scarlett glared at the secretary behind me and snapped, aren't you going to get him out of here? Yes, Ms. Scarlett. The secretary reached out to pull me away. I sidestepped to avoid her, then walked towards Scarlett. Seeing this, Scarlett immediately frowned. Julian's gaze towards me also became puzzled. Under their watchful eyes, I spoke coldly, "Didn't we agree to get divorced today?" Faced with my question, Scarlett's expression turned incredibly grim. Julian immediately released Scarlett's arm and looked at me, bewildered. "What did you say? What are you going to do with Scarlett?" I heard him and chuckled. "Mr. Julian, didn't you know that Scarlett and I have been married for 2 years?" After I spoke, I looked at Scarlett with a hint of disdain. "Ms. Scarlett, it's quite unethical to conceal your marital status from your first love." "You shut up." Scarlett snarled, her face full of rage. "Scarlett, what is going on?" Julian asked, his eyes red-rimmed and his face filled with hurt. Looking at Scarlett, Scarlett immediately looked heartbroken. "Julian, don't listen to his nonsense. This is just a game. You're the only one I truly love. As for this man, I just see him as a plaything for my amusement." I heard her and let out a cold laugh. "Ms. Scarlett, you actually got legally married to a plaything. You sure play a big game." As I spoke, I took out the marriage certificate from my bag and waved it in front of them both. Seeing this, Julian swayed, all color draining from his face. Scarlett, who was standing nearby, quickly reached out to steady him, asking with concern, "Julian, are you all right? Don't touch me." Julian slapped Scarlett's hand away and stumbled back 2 steps. "I can't believe you're already married." Large tears fell from Julian's eyes. He looked on the verge of collapse, incredibly fragile. Even I, a stranger, found him pitiable. Scarlett, standing nearby, looked even more heartbroken. "Julian, let me explain." He and I, however, she was cut off by Julian halfway through her sentence. "Don't say anything more. I don't want to hear it. You already have a husband, so what am I to you?" Julian sobbed softly, his voice full of despair and heartbreak. I honestly couldn't stand watching it anymore. Actually, this is quite easy to solve." As I spoke, I pulled the divorce agreement from my bag and handed it to Scarlett. "Sign this, and you'll be single again. Can you stop making things worse?" Scarlett shot me an impatient glance. "I am helping you solve a problem. Do you want to see your first love this upset?" I motioned towards Julian with my chin. "Scarlett, I won't force you to get a divorce. I'll leave right now and go somewhere and never bother you two again." Julian's face was filled with resolve as he turned and walked towards the door. Scarlett immediately panicked and tried to go after him. Unfortunately, I blocked her path. "If you don't sign this divorce agreement today, you're not going anywhere." Hearing this, Scarlett snatched the divorce agreement from my hand with an angry expression. After flipping through a few pages, Scarlett frowned, a look of disbelief on her face. "You don't want anything." "I just want a divorce," I said expressionlessly. Hearing me, Scarlett looked at me mockingly. "Ethan, if you're trying to make me feel guilty and compensate you this way, then your wish is certainly going to be unfulfilled. You're overthinking it," I said with a cold laugh. She had already disgusted me to the extreme. I didn't want any further contact with her over money. After I spoke, I gave a meaningful glance towards the door and slowly added, "If you keep dragging your feet and don't sign, you definitely won't catch your first love today." Hearing this, Scarlett ignored me, picked up the pen nearby, and signed her name on the divorce agreement. Seeing this, a satisfied smile touched my lips. Finally, I was completely rid of this woman. I carefully dragged my luggage back to my parents' neighborhood, staring at the front door of my home, so close by. My face was a mix of hesitation and dread. Back then, my parents thought Scarlett was too insincere. A marriage, such a big event, and she didn't arrange for both sets of parents to meet. It clearly spelled trouble. So they were strongly against me being with Scarlett, but I was stubborn and insisted on being with her. Thinking about it now, my parents truly had wise judgment. I still can't believe how she managed to brush me off with an excuse about inconvenient transportation back then. How stupid. I cautiously pressed my ear against my family's front door, trying to hear any movement inside. Just then, with a clatter, the front door opened. I instantly stumbled backward in shock, but luckily, a fair, smooth arm quickly steadied me. I looked at the owner of the arm, slender, elegant eyes, delicate features, and beauty comparable to that of a celebrity. I was stunned. Where did this beautiful woman come from? And why was she coming out of my house? Did I come to the wrong place? I murmured softly, No way. ID lived here for over 20 years. I looked up at the house number, double-checking it. Just then, the woman in front of me suddenly spoke. Ethan, don't you even recognize yourself anymore? I was a bit confused. You know me. Of course. The woman rolled her eyes at me, then took the suitcase from my hand. Come on in, your mom and dad went to the local market. I nodded, wondering if she was some long-lost relative, perhaps a daughter or son to my parents. If that were true, would it mean my mom and dad really didn't want me anymore? My mood instantly became a bit anxious, and I sat uncomfortably on the sofa. Seeing my unease, the woman gave a teasing smile. Ethan, why are you so nervous in your own home? What do you know? This might not even be my home anymore. I glared at her. What's not whose home? My dad's voice suddenly came from the doorway. I quickly looked over. My parents walked in from the doorway, carrying bags and bundles, their faces beaming with happiness. However, upon seeing me, the smiles on their faces abruptly vanished. Dad, Mom, I raised my hand and weakly greeted my parents. However, my parents ignored me and instead looked at the woman beside them, smiling. Chloe, you're having lunch at Auntie's place today. Auntie bought your favorite shrimp. Okay, Auntie. Chloe stepped forward and took the shopping bags from my parents' hands. Suck up, I muttered under my breath. What are you staring at? Hurry up and help Chloe carry these. My mom glared at me. Hearing that, I quickly put on an appeasing smile. Okay, Mom. We took the groceries into the kitchen, and as we were about to leave, Chloe suddenly grabbed my arm. Ethan, do you really not recognize me? I blinked at her, feeling confused. It's Chloe. You used to say you'd protect me when we were kids, and now you don't even remember who I am. Hearing that, I paused for a moment, then a huge wave of surprise and delight washed over my face. Chloe, the chubby girl from next door. My childhood sweetheart. Back then, my daily routine was to tease her, and then protect her from anyone else who tried to pick on her. However, in my first year of high school, Chloe's entire family emigrated abroad, and we lost touch. At the time, I was sad for quite a while. Thinking about this, I couldn't help but purse my lips at Chloe. So you decided to come back? You promised to write to me, but I never received a single letter. You have the nerve to say that. I wrote you so many letters, and you never wrote back to me once. Hearing that, a puzzled look crossed my face. Why didn't I receive any letters? Just then, my mom's voice suddenly called from the living room. Why are you two taking so long putting things away? Come out and eat some watermelon. Coming, I replied, no longer dwelling on the letters, and walked towards the living room. At the dinner table, my parents enthusiastically served Chloe food, completely ignoring my presence. My expression immediately grew a bit resentful. Anyone who didn't know would think Chloe was your actual daughter. It would be wonderful if Chloe really were our own, my dad said with a meaningful glance at me. Sighing emotionally, I sheepishly looked down. Suddenly, a cola chicken wing, my favorite, appeared in my bowl. I looked up. Eat up, once you full, you can continue annoying us, my dad said, as he put another one of my favorite sweet and sour meatballs into my bowl. My eyes welled up involuntarily. After dinner, Chloe took on the responsibility of washing the dishes. I sat on the sofa and recounted everything that had happened recently. After finishing, I bowed my head, bracing myself for my parents' anger. After all, I hadn't listened to them when I got married, nor had I consulted them when I got divorced. However, the expected outburst of fury never came. I couldn't help but look up at them. You, for once, you actually did something smart. My mom gently poked my head with her finger. That marriage never should have happened in the first place. It's good you got divorced, my dad said with a sigh of relief. All right, less talk. Go change our son's bedsheets. My mom shot a glance at my dad. My eyes, despite myself, welled up again, and my heart filled with warmth. I began my life of living with my parents at home. In the mornings, I accompanied my parents to the local market to buy groceries. In the afternoons, I enjoyed the delicious meals my parents prepared. In the afternoons, I played chess with my dad and watched TV shows with my mom. In the evenings, I even joined the old couple for the community dance. Life was wonderfully pleasant. Of course, it would be even better if Chloe didn't appear at my doorstep punctually every morning. That girl. If she hadn't repeatedly promised I'd almost suspect she traveled all the way back from abroad just to steal my parents from me. Don't you have work? You always glued to my house. I looked at the girl sitting opposite, wondering what she was thinking after buying groceries. Instead of rushing back home, she had to come to a coffee shop for a cup of coffee, so a bit pretentious. Hearing my words, Chloe said indifferently, "No need. My assistant is really capable. I trust him completely with the company. He's running a company now." I wide-eyed, my face full of surprise. As I spoke, I eyed Chloe up and down, a hint of indignation in my expression. I can't believe a girl like you, besides being such a rascal, is actually quite capable. Of course, Chloe boasted, raising an eyebrow proudly. Seeing this, I couldn't resist reaching out and giving her a playful tap on the head. Just then, a familiar voice suddenly sounded behind me. "Ethan, is this why you divorced me?" I turned my head and looked. Scarlett stood not far away, glaring at me with a furious expression. I couldn't help but frown. How could I run into her? What bad luck. "I can't come to this coffee shop anymore," I muttered under my breath. By then, Scarlett had already strode to our table. "Who is she?" Scarlett demanded. I ignored her. "Did you divorce me for her?" Scarlett's expression grew somewhat angry. "Yes, I did." I glanced at her, unconcerned. Hearing this, Scarlett's face instantly turned as dark as thunder. "Ethan, is this type of woman worth giving me up for? Worth giving up a prestigious family status?" Hearing her, I couldn't help but let out a cold laugh. Prestigious family. Scarlett Shaw had a lot of nerve to say that. Had she forgotten how she treated me as a mere plaything? To say something like that now was utterly ridiculous. "What are you laughing at? Am I wrong? Without me, and never climb the social ladder in this lifetime." After she spoke, Scarlett glanced contemptuously at Chloe and sneered. "For a woman like Ethan, you'll regret it. If you beg me now, I won't." I coldly cut her off, continuing nonchalantly, "She's far more gentle and kind than you are." After I finished, I ignored Scarlett's face, which was turning green with rage, stood up, went over to Chloe, and intimately took her arm. "Let's go, Ethan, your ex-wife is so ugly," Chloe said, looking at Scarlett with a disgusted expression. Hearing that, I almost burst out laughing. I never realized Chloe was so good at provoking people, but I wholeheartedly agreed with what she said. Chloe's words completely enraged Scarlett. She directly blocked our path. "Are you asking for a fight, you bitch? Ethan, she's so mean." Chloe feigned a frightened expression. "Scarlett, please be gentle with my girlfriend." I glared at Scarlett, feeling impatient. With that, I grabbed Chloe's hand and walked past Scarlett. "Ah." Scarlett clutched her shoulder, letting out a muffled groan. I looked at Chloe beside me. "Ethan, I didn't mean to bump into her. She was blocking the way," Chloe said, blinking innocently. "Even if you did, it's fine," I chuckled, pulling Chloe away. Once outside, Chloe shot me a disgusted glance. "Ethan, your taste used to be so bad. She's gone now. Can you stop being so manipulative?" I said, a speechless expression crossing my face, as I let go of Chloe's hand. Who would have thought she would grab my hand back and hold it tightly? I frowned slightly, somewhat displeased. "Let go of my hand." "No way. You just said I was your girlfriend. What's wrong with me holding my own boyfriend's hand?" Chloe said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "Don't tell me you couldn't tell I was just saying that to deal with Scarlett." I was speechless. Hearing my words, Chloe released my hand, then placed both hands on my shoulders, and turned me to face her. "Ethan, don't tell me you didn't notice I like you." Hearing that, I was slightly taken aback. Chloe said, "She liked me. I must have heard wrong." I lightly punched her arm. "Stop kidding around." "I am not kidding." Chloe looked at me seriously. "Ethan, I like you. I've liked you since I was 8 years old. I came back to the country this time just to find you. When I heard you got married from your parents, I almost went crazy. Thankfully, fate was on my side. Back, and I have another chance to be with you." Looking into Chloe's sparkling eyes, my face flushed, and my heart suddenly began to beat faster. Chloe and I officially started dating. My parents were overjoyed when they heard the news. Not only that, my dad even warned me not to pick on Chloe, or he wouldn't acknowledge me as his son. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Who was the real child here anyway? But to be fair, Chloe was indeed much more filial than I, their actual son. Life seemed unchanged, yet something had shifted. But regardless, these days filled me with great happiness and contentment, until reappeared. It was then that I learned, after Julian's persistent coaxing, Scarlett had gotten legally married to him, and they had held a lavish wedding that caused a sensation throughout the entire city. What a shame that this romance ultimately turned into a massive joke. Julian's foreign girlfriend, whom he had known and dated for 5 years abroad, showed up at the wedding. She produced numerous intimate photos and videos of herself and Julian. The entire wedding venue immediately erupted in an uproar, but what was even more explosive was Julian's blonde, blue-eyed foreign girlfriend's announcement. She was pregnant with Julian's child, and that Julian had only rushed back to the country because she wanted to get married. The wedding was completely ruined. Scarlett became the laughingstock of the entire financial district. Her company's stock plummeted dozens of points overnight, hitting rock bottom. Vance lost almost 2/3 of its profits. Scarlett's wealthy parents were so furious they were hospitalized. So, she remembered me. She remembered this fool, whom she had twisted around her finger, and who had willingly paid off her 6-figure debt. Ethan, I am sorry. Everything I did to you before was because Julian, that bitch, deceived me. That's why I lost my mind. Hearing her, a look of exasperation crossed my face. If I had known I'd run into this psycho today, nothing would have stopped me from dragging Chloe, who was watching a soccer game with my dad, out with me. I tried to bypass Scarlett, however. She kept blocking my way. Ethan, can you forgive me? I promise that if you come back, I'll treat you well, and make you the happiest person in the world, and I promise, I'll be the happiest man in a wealthy family. Scarlett's eyes widened as she looked at me, her expression intensely agitated. Hearing her, I glanced at her. Scarlett, Vance is practically finished. Aren't you worried? Why do you have time to come find me? Ethan, what do you mean by that? A hint of confusion flashed across Scarlett's face. I mean, go mind your own business and stop bothering me, I said coldly. However, I underestimated Scarlett's shamelessness. She actually grabbed my arm. Ethan, can't you give me one more chance? Have you forgotten how much we used to love each other? Scarlett's voice gradually rose, and her expression became somewhat frantic. I couldn't break free from the hand she had clamped onto me, despite all my strength. Just then, a dark figure suddenly darted past. Ah! Scarlett let out a scream, clutching her bleeding nose tightly with one hand. Chloe. A flash of pleasant surprise crossed my face. Are you okay? Chloe looked at me with a worried expression. I shook my head. You dare hit me? Are you asking for a fight? Scarlett raged. Seeing this, Chloe gave a cold laugh, and her fist swung towards Scarlett's face again. In less than 5 minutes, Scarlett lay on the ground, groaning repeatedly. Next time, eat dead. Chloe looked at Scarlett as if she were looking at a dead person. Scarlett immediately shuddered all over, curling her body into a ball. Let's go, Ethan. Chloe took my hand. Okay. My gaze remained fixed on Chloe, not sparing Scarlett a single glance. How are you so skilled? You kidding? Your sister here is a taekwondo black belt. From that day on, Scarlett never came to bother me again, but she was truly too famous. I still occasionally saw text messages about her online. Julian and Scarlett went to court over their divorce. After the verdict, Julian obtained half of Scarlett's family assets. Not only that, Julian sold all the Vance shares he acquired to Vance's rival company, then gleefully took the money and went abroad with his ex-girlfriend. Vance completely collapsed. Scarlett's parents disowned her. None of her so-called wealthy friends helped her out. Everyone abandoned her. She completely lost her mind and was sent to a mental facility. But that no longer had anything to do with me. Besides, I now have more important matters, that is, preparing with my parents to welcome Chloe's parents. Chloe, do you think your aunt and uncle will like the gifts I prepared for them? I looked at the woman beside me. Yes. They'll love anything their son-in-law prepares, Chloe said with certainty, smiling dotingly.